I start with the dua, inshallah.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Mm.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So inshallah, start with a short little reminder. Inshallah, I apologize. A little bit of short notice. Also, for me in general, Ramadan is a tough schedule, so there's a little bit of a struggle on my end to inshallah get things started week one, but bismillah, after this we should be okay. Also, I'm not too sure. I think that might be a little better. So I just wanted to share a couple tips that my teacher shared with me, and we've been pondering and reflecting over for the past few weeks about how to take advantage not only of this opportunity that we have, and why it is that it's possible that this year is a special year for us, inshallah, because there's a reality, and it's a massive elephant in the room, and we kind of have to address it, and that's this idea that we're all stuck, right? None of us can go to masajid. Masajid might be closed until the end of Ramadan, and as hurtful and as depressing as that might seem, it also presents us with a very unique opportunity, subhanAllah, a very unique opportunity. Generally, we all we have this, there's almost kind of a fallback that we have, right? To where my personal daily routine goes like this in Ramadan, right? I wake up for suhoor, maybe make some dua, eat a little bit, and then pray fajr, maybe at the masjid, inshallah. And then, if I'm really, really, really good, I'll stay at the masjid after fajr until sunrise, and then during that time make ibadah, pray my duha after the sunrise passes a little bit, and then I'll come home. And then sleep, and then so on and so forth, right? You fast, and then nighttime comes, you break your fast, you kind of pray Maghrib, you hang out with the family a little bit, then go to the masjid, pray Taraweeh, and then you come back home, and that's it. In general, like that's like a good version of Ramadan for most of us. Maybe it's not the ideal version for everyone, but it's a very good way of going about how to do Ramadan, alhamdulillah. And so this year we kind of have to look at things differently, because a big factor in that is no longer there, and that's the fact that we can't really go to the masjid. So how do we do a day-to-day in Ramadan when we're all in isolation? And what are the things that we have to focus on Ramadan this year that in years past probably we didn't focus on that much? So I'll get into the fast itself later. There's a deep spiritual connection that I don't know about everyone else, but I feel like I've been lacking for many years. Alhamdulillah, it's there. You understand that you have this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but like, how personal is it? How is that like one-on-one with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? SubhanAllah, we get 30 days, plus or minus. And of course, we've had this for longer, and we have this every day. But how often do we actually think about it and internalize it in this way? Not often, right? We have 30 days where, for the most part, most of us, barring a few individuals, where we're not only stuck, but like we can't leave our homes because like we shouldn't leave our homes. And we will fast while we're at home, and then we're going to do our night tasks, our Ramadan nightly tasks at home. And so there's this unique opportunity where I get to spend 30 days of just absolute, unadulterated, unfiltered me time. Just one-on-one, me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having intimate conversations every single night with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where when I pray my Taraweeh, whether I'm praying 8 rak'ahs, or 4 rak'ahs, or 2 rak'ahs, or 20 rak'ahs, or more than that, it's just me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe my kids are around, maybe my family's with me for some of it or all of it, Allahu a'lam. but it's much more personal now. That group of people is so much smaller, to where I now have the opportunity, I could pray most of it with my children, but I can also pray a couple rak'ahs myself, or all the rak'ahs myself. I personally, I live with a couple roommates. We pray half together, and then we pray some on our own. And those rak'ahs that I pray on my own with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't remember the last time I got this opportunity to do it so frequently. Well, yeah, it's unfortunate that, this isn't a daily occurrence in our lives, but the reality is, a lot of us don't have that opportunity. And a lot of us have not been able to do this. I know personally, this is something in my life, a personal ibadah in my life that I've tried to add for many years and I was not able to do. And I feel so blessed and honored that this year has come to where I am essentially, and of course, like, this is one way of looking at it. That might not always be the case, but it definitely feels like all the cards are in place for me to do this, where I almost don't have a choice, because I want to pray Taraweeh, but there's no masjid. So now that I'm praying in my home, how do I get to do that? And the idea that I get these 30 minutes to an hour, this hour and a half of just me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I go at my own pace. I spend as long as I want in sujood. I make whatever dua I want to make. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything I need. And although these things are things that we can do on a daily basis, and we do all the time probably, not only is this month special, right? This is Ramadan, right? This is the most blessed month of the year. And more so than that, the nights of Ramadan are special, right? You feel that beauty in the night when you're standing there all night praying. It feels so beautiful. And then more so than just that, like, you're doing qiyam on your own in Ramadan in a time where we've probably it's been about like a couple months now since we've been stuck in isolation for some time. And so we've had a lot of time to reflect and think. And then if we haven't, we have a lot of time to reflect and think. Right? We have so many hours ahead of us, so many days ahead of us for us to really sit down and dig deep and think. What is the state of my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it good? Well, if it's good, then there's always improvement. There's this beautiful concept that pretty much all of the famous thinkers of our of the Islamic sciences, there's this one concept that all of them talk about, and it's this idea of ma'rifat an-nafs, right? Knowing yourself. So there was one very beautiful statement that I loved, and I'm sorry I can't trace who said it, but they say that the way you know someone that you're hanging out with or a person that you're listening to is someone that is worth not only listening to and taking knowledge from, but also at the same time, someone who is not ignorant, is someone who, after they look at themselves, whether they're the biggest scholar of scholars or just, your regular, genuine good Muslim, the way you know that this person is actually a beneficial, smart human being is when, after they reflect on themselves and after they look and introspect, they can tell you, I have a long way to go. I am nowhere near where I need to be. I am not anything close to a finished product. I never will be. But especially where I am right now, I need a lot of work. Because that's the essence, right? No matter where you are on this path, no matter where you are in life, there's a reality that it's never going to be good enough, right? Alhamdulillah. That's not a bad thing. That's not like a hopeless statement. Because at the end of the day, when we look at what we're told in the facts, there's a very simple fact, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us very clearly, very simply. None of us are going to be getting into Jannah without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. This is a truth, right? No matter how good and how great our deeds are, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us His mercy, we're not going to enter Jannah. So how does that manifest, and how are we supposed to understand this? It's very simple, right? be very sincere with your statements and push yourself. Don't be complacent with your ibadah. Don't be complacent with your worship. Don't be complacent with the way you treat your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and improving it all the time, inshallah. And how do we improve? We reflect, right? We reflect. We look at the way our relationship has been for a while. How do I worship Allah? In what state do I worship Allah? When I go to pray my Taraweeh during Ramadan at home, am I just doing it in my pajama thobe, or am I putting on nice clothes, wearing some nice atar, and maybe taking a shower, right? Am I wearing my kufi before I pray? Or, I was just like, oh, I'm at home. I don't need to do all these things, right? At the end of the day, this is salah, right? This is your personal time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are you presenting yourself in front of Him? And then once you're there, right, is your mind on 1,000 other things like usual? Or are you trying hard to really zone in and hone in and focus and really take advantage and actually have like an intimate conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We spend most of our life, like, we pray our fard, right? And we probably pray some sunnah. And there's a lot of conversation, especially in fiqh, about like how you should probably keep, especially in your fard, your prayers and the supplications that you make in prayers to like things that we're told in the Quran and Sunnah. None of that really applies to nawafil. None of that prays to supererogatory prayers, right? When I'm praying my taraweeh, and it's just the extra prayers that I'm praying, I can say whatever I want to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I'm in my sujood, when I'm in my ruku, when I'm sitting down. Like, in all of these places, I have that opportunity to sit down and talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So take those opportunities and take advantage. SubhanAllah, I was thinking about this the other day. Total side note, and has nothing to do with it. But like all the parents who, mashallah, either memorize the Quran or made it a point to have one of their children memorize the Quran, they're so blessed right now. They are ecstatic over the decisions they've made in their lives, especially for asking their children to memorize the Quran, because that's a big blessing right now. You guys pretty much get a beautiful tarawih every single day, regardless of whether or not the masjid is open. And the rest of us, especially us who are supposedly Hanafi, we've all become Shafi'i for a month because now we're all reading out of Mus'haf. So I had a couple of things that I wanted to say in terms of tips. So I'm probably going to go through them. The first thing, and these are some thoughts that my teacher and I were talking about, and he was telling me how there's this interesting concept, when we like look into life and in general, like things that we're looking forward to, there's a very beautiful analogy that we can draw. And so I'm going to try and set this one up. When I want to buy a new phone, right, or a laptop, for example, I'll start doing my research and everything, and like, oh, this one's really good, that one's really good. Okay, what's the cost effectiveness? And eventually, after doing some research, you realize that like there's one phone you want. Cool. But then you're like, but I don't know anything about phones, actually. Let me talk to the expert on phones. So then you talk to your friend who's the expert on phones, and your friend says, dude, it's January. You just missed all the sales. They passed like 2 months ago. He's like, well, Black Friday was, you could have said something back then. And you're like, oh no, Black Friday. So you don't buy anything. And you wait all the way. 11 months later, Black Friday's here. You're so excited. You've actually done a little more research because now things are cheaper and different. So then you find what you actually wanted all this time and you go and buy it. And there's this idea that like we have these seasons in life, right? To where like sometimes it's a good time to do things, sometimes it's not the best time to do things, right? In between January and Black Friday, there's like a bunch of different like times to buy things and sales that go on in these stores, right? Is it the best time to be buying my phone during the, I don't know what they have these days, President Day sale or whatever, or back to school, right? There's all these different like seasons that beautiful capitalist America, they give us different opportunities, basically just encouraging us to buy all the time. But khair. So Same thing kind of applies for our personal ibadah, right? So we kind of, when Black Friday comes around and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the things that I need, I'm essentially like preparing myself for what's after Black Friday, right? And that's the fact that there's no sales after Black Friday. So when I go and I make and I make all my purchases, I would probably make purchases that I don't actually need in the moment, right? But I'm like, I anticipate I need something in March or April, so let me buy it now while it's very cheap, right? I have a wedding in June. Let me buy my um, suit and my pants and my dress shirts now while they're still cheap, right? And so we kind of find ourselves doing this, using these seasons to prepare. And so right now we have a very beautiful season that's going to help us prepare pretty much for the entire year, right? Now that we're in Ramadan, we use this time to kind of reflect on our hearts and our souls and our minds and see how it is that we can use that to propel us for the rest of the year, right? Because not the entire year is this 30-day beautiful grind of me time, alone time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you're conscious all the time of your actions and trying your best to do right by everyone and trying your best to do right by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have that all the time, right? For the rest of the year, every other day of the year, it's not like that. Maybe inshallah we can get to that point, but the idea is when I'm in this season, when I'm in Ramadan, I probably work harder. I should work harder, and that's a reality. But not only should I work harder, but how do I use that to propel me for the rest of the year, right? Am I using that to set myself up to build good habits, inshallah, that I could take with me, especially now where, again, right, we're in isolation, we're having this one-on-one beautiful time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I'm in this time, when I have all this time for myself, am I using it properly? Because I can build a lot of habits that I don't otherwise have. So some food for thought, inshallah. Second point, and this is a thought that comes up very often. And I'm going to actually go off on a tangent answering this question, right? But there's this idea and this thought and this that comes up very often, very justifiable question. And it says, what's the point of Ramadan if I can't maintain this level of Ramadan afterwards, right? This level of spirituality, this level of faith, this level of worship. What's the point of Ramadan if I don't keep it up afterwards, right? Why should I try so hard if I can't even maintain it? Right? There's this idea, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he tells one of the companions, where he's like, don't be like so and so who used to pray, who used to pray his night prayers but no longer prays them. That is a concept in general. It's not like it's an unheard of thing. But at the same time, Ramadan is here, right? So even if you're someone who doesn't even regularly pray, for example, this is a great time to pray. If you're lucky, it's a time to start praying forever. If you're not someone who regularly prays their extra prayers, their sunnah prayers, this is an opportunity to do so. And inshallah, build on that forever. But there's actually a hadith that speaks on this so beautifully. And before I get into that hadith, I actually wanted to take this and use this opportunity to go on a little bit of a tangent. So Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, he's probably one of the most famous and celebrated thinkers of the Islamic sciences and of like our scholarship. One of his most well-known books that pretty much all of us like to quote all the time is Ihya Ulumuddin, the revival of Islamic sciences. In that book, he highlights 3 levels of fasting, and it's actually a very fascinating topic because they're all simple things that we know and we think about. But subhanAllah, when you take the time to reflect and internalize on how to apply these to your Ramadan and your daily fast, it's so beautiful. So in the beginning, he starts off and he calls this fasting the level of the lay people, right? This is the lowest level of fasting, base fasting. Well, if you do this, alhamdulillah, you're fasting, right? But this is the main stuff, and everyone has to master the basics. And he says this is simple, right? It's merely following the outward rules of fasting. And what is fasting in general? What is the outward definition of it? It's abstaining from food and drink and intimacy during the day between sunrise and sunset, right? So that's the simple part of fasting. You do that, and alhamdulillah, by the end of the day, when Maghrib comes in, you fasted for it. He says that's the level of the lay people, right? What is the level of the elite people? The people who they're they know what they're doing, right? They understand and they reflect and they take Ramadan to another level. How is it that they practice? So he says this level of people, this group of elite Muslims, there are 6 things that they add to this level of their fast. And these are simple things, but they're very profound right now. And I'll get into why later. But he says, or I'll get into why in just a second. He says, fasting with your sight, fasting with your tongue, and fasting with your ears. So, how does that apply to us in our scenarios? Oh my God, there's so many ways. SubhanAllah. There's this chapter heading in Imam Nawawi's Riyadh al-Salihin. So Riyadh al-Salihin is a collection of ahadith, and so each of these ahadith fall into a certain chapter, and all these chapters have different headings, right? So this heading is very interesting. I actually pulled it up. It says the numerous ways of doing good. That's the heading of the chapter. There's a collection of ahadith that he's compiled that talk about the different ways that I can do good deeds, the different way that I can earn rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a fascinating subject because it reminds us that doing good in our deen, right? Earning good rewards by doing good and trying to gain hasanat, it's not just a simple, 5 or 6 things, right? There's so many ways. I can do good in like thousands of ways on a day-to-day basis. And when I'm just like hanging out and when I'm with my family and I'm just trying to do my regular ibadah, how is it that I go about doing that? And so when I wake up in the morning, right before Dhuhr, I pray my duha, cool, right? And then Dhuhr comes around, I pray my sunnahs and my Dhuhr, and cool, all that's nice, right? I get to Asr, I get to Maghrib, all that's nice. In that time, how did I fill the time between my prayers and my dhikr and my, all the good things that I should be doing? How did I fill that, right? Was I nice with my children? I'm a child, have I been good to my parents? Right? If I don't live with my parents, alhamdulillah, unfortunately I don't, but am I calling my parents, checking up on them every day, asking them how was your day, how was your fast, right? Just giving them that respect because they're our parents at the end of the day. If your mom or your sister, or your spouse is cooking in the kitchen, you're there all day, right? Are you offering to help? Because I understand sometimes I don't want that. But that doesn't mean that, it's muharram for us to enter the kitchen. No, it's actually a very beautiful thing for you to go in there and offer. Be like, hey, is there anything I could do? Set the table, clean up, maybe do some dishes for you, maybe cut some onions for you. Right? No one wants to cut onions. And so the little things in our life that we can do. But fasting of the eyes and the nose, or sorry, the eyes and the mouth and the ears. How do I do that? Well, interestingly, right now in Ramadan, we're all stuck at home. What does that mean? That really means one thing. We're on the internet all the time. We're spending our time pretty much on our phones, on social media, on whatever. It's unfortunate. Alhamdulillah, I don't partake in most of these things, but the reality is I'm trying to fill my time using the internet. And the internet is not a safe place, and we all know this. So when I'm on the internet, am I taking care not to be looking at things that, might pop up and putting myself in a place? Look, I'm not even going to get into the haram stuff. Let's not even go there. But even as simple as like, I'm watching some videos on YouTube that for the most part are okay. Am I being cautious that whatever I'm watching, like there's no bad language being used, the themes that are being talked about are not bad? Or am I just like, whatever, right? It's not me, it's just this video. It's no big deal. It's only a 5-minute video. Like, no. Like, don't allow yourself to don't allow yourself to fall into these traps, and don't allow yourself to make excuses for these things, right? Safeguard everything. You're at home. There's no reason for you to fall under these traps. And then there's the big ones, right? Where you're kind of sitting with your family. And I know this because like I've sat with my family before, and it's taken years for us to finally get to a point where we don't do this anymore. For the most part. For the most part. You can never control things 100%, right? But when you're with your loved ones, when you're with people, you kind of talk about others, right? It's a thing, especially about family, right? It's so easy when I'm with my brother to talk about my other brother, or when I'm with my mom to talk about my aunt. Like it's a thing that we do, right? It starts off with like, oh, I haven't talked to my aunt in ages. How's she doing? Oh, Habibi, your aunt, and then the floodgates open, right? Are we being cautious not to do this? Because this is huge, right? Like the last thing we want to do while fasting from food is not fasting on other people, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's very there's very interesting hadith where he talks about different different situations where there were women who were backbiting, and how he completely was not okay with this. And I'm not going to get too much in the hadith because I don't have them pulled up, but he told them, this is, you're essentially eating your brother's flesh. Like you can't be doing this. And so are we safeguarding, right? So safeguard your eyes, safeguard your ears, safeguard your tongue. And then more so than anything, and I touched on this earlier, but really double down on this. My teacher, may Allah bless him and bless his family, he made a beautiful point when this virus really kind of started to kick off and we all started getting isolated. He said, look, if it's safe for you to go home, and if you are home, then not only should you be with your parents or, with your children, but this really should be your opportunity where you try and propel yourself in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and earn Jannah. And how do you earn Jannah when you're with your family? There's no greater, or there are few greater things than serving your parents. I really wish I had that opportunity right now, and it's something that I miss gravely every single day. And that's why I try to talk to my mother and my father as often as possible, because the reality is that's where Jannah is found, right? Having your parents be pleased with you. So if you're at home, don't get into stupid, pointless arguments with your parents. When they ask something, don't just do it. Be happy that you're doing it. Your mom says, can you help me with the dishes? Can you help me with the laundry? Be like, of course. I'd love to, my pleasure. Go above and beyond, You see dirty things going on and there's some cleaning that needs to be done. Just do it, because for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than anyone, right? Forget about if seeing your parents smile is not enough of a motivation, which I hope it is, then know that the act that you're doing that makes your parents smile is an act that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so much. So use this opportunity and don't waste it, inshallah. So anyways, going back to what Imam Ghazali rahimahullah was saying, so after those three things, he says there's three more things to kind of fill up this elite level of fasting. So he says, keeping the remainder of your body parts from engaging in blameworthy acts, right? So protecting my arms, my limbs, my legs, right, from doing things that are haram, or going, walking to a place of haram, maybe hitting someone, right, especially if they don't deserve it. I understand sometimes, but no. In all seriousness, like, are we taking caution to not use, or to not take our anger out on others, right? It's very easy, and I understand, I'm not a parent, but I've had parents, right? Sometimes it's easy for your kid to really rile you up and make you upset, and it's not hard to just real quick, right? Inshallah, this is something that we should probably refrain from, right? If we're stuck for months with our kids, I understand how that could probably be frustrating, especially if your kids are younger. But this is a month of love and mahabbah, of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's use these opportunities to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala our appreciation, right? And one of those things is being careful not to do things that displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so maybe not using your arms and your legs to wail on your children, it's a good idea, right? Inshallah, no one here wails on their children. I just, just in case, just in case. So the two other things he says, I'm going to say his fifth one last because it's big, right? But he says, after breaking one's fast, we should balance feeling hope and fear, right? And this kind of, it goes with this idea of like being hopeful that my fast and my worship is being accepted, but also not being too overconfident, right? Being a little fearful that maybe it wasn't accepted. And what that does is it always leaves you in this state where you're not like totally down and like depressed and not able to worship because you're just like it's hopeless. But at the same time, you're not like so overconfident that you're not worshiping and you're not asking Allah to keep your intentions sincere and your actions sincere and your actions pure. These are important things to do. And it's something that we should do not just in Ramadan all the time, but this is important for Ramadan because you never want to fall into that habit to where, again, something we talked about earlier of like, I'm good, right? I'm like the perfect Muslim and everything I do is totally awesome, right? I'm like an amazing Muslim. That's not something we want to do. That's not a habit that we want. And inshallah, like whenever the opportunity arises, which is now, we're making every effort possible to quell any kind of arrogance or narcissism or just any kind of showing off inside of our worship, right? Or feeling of like over excessive confidence and pride in our worship, inshallah. And so this is the final point he talks about in this level, and this is something that's huge. And I'm a pretty big guy, so this means a lot to me personally. And he says, don't overeat. So actually, in the same book, he has this massive section over breaking the desire of the stomach. Oh my, I remember reading part of it. I had to put pause on finishing that chapter because it was killing my nafs, man, which is good. But like, when I say killing my nafs, like it hurt deep, deep inside. It just reminds you of how like, man, we've turned into a gluttonous society, subhanAllah. The points he makes are beautiful. And in Ramadan, this holds true more than any other month, right? Where I could tell you in my life, I could probably say with confidence, no less, and it's probably much more, but I don't want to expose myself, but no less than 50% of my iftars have ended up in a food coma. And oh man, ending up in a food coma in Ramadan is the worst because you've been waiting all day to eat. You see all this food in front of you, so you really can't help yourself. And you probably eat more than capacity. And so once you're over capacity, what happens is you struggle to get through Maghrib. You get through Maghrib, you're like, all right, cool. I did 3 rakahs. Should I really pray another 2 for Sunnah? I don't know if I can. Like, I might throw up in the middle of these 2. But somehow you muster up the courage and like maybe you waited, you gave yourself like a solid 15-minute break and then you did them. And then Aisha comes around, you're like, oh man, I have to pray 4 now in a row at the same time. What am I going to do? But then somehow you muster up the courage, especially back when we had masajid, right? You go all the way to the masjid, you pray your 4, struggling big time. You're like, oh man, Taraweeh, what am I going to do for Taraweeh? And if you're lucky, you prayed all 8. If you're lucky, and if you're like good and you're persevering, but those 8 were not pleasant. And you were not thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the entire time. You're probably thinking about how it is that you're going to hold things in and what the contingency plan for if you're going to bust and how you're going to go and where you're going to go and where the nearest trash can is, right? Because it's unfortunate, but we kind of fall into these habits in Ramadan. And, this is something I'm working hard, and it's a big goal of mine this year to where I don't, inshallah, I want to try and save myself from overindulging, especially when iftar time comes around. And there's one reason for this, right? Well, okay, there's multiple reasons for this, but there's one very profound reason for this. It just makes you tired, right? When you overeat, you want to knock out at that point. But if you can hold that in for a little bit, inshallah, when the opportunity comes, when you're gonna pray your tahajjud, when you're gonna pray your extra sunnah, and when you're gonna sit there and make dua, you're not sleepy. You're not gonna be too lazy to do it, right? Because you're light and you're just like, I can do this, and it feels good. And so take advantage of that. Don't allow yourself to fall into that cycle, inshallah. So, I realized that it's 6:40 now. So I had more to say than I thought I did. But I want to finish off this point because it's really nice. So Imam Ghazali rahimahullah, he says, and this is the final point he makes, and he says, this is the third level, and it's the level of the elite people. And what is it that these guys do? They are cautious to the point to where they don't allow their bodies and their minds to have even one moment where their consciousness breaks. Not even one moment where their consciousness is allowed to break, subhanAllah. And so, you know, when we're thinking about that, it's almost impossible to see how I can spend 100% of my day in constant remembrance and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever I bring this topic up and I talk about it, I like to use it to kind of focus in on one main point, right? So if I can't do this all the time, when can I do it? And how can I benefit from this kind of concept? When I'm praying, how good is my focus? And I talked about this a lot. I want to end on this because it's very important. When I'm praying, how good is my focus? Look, the reality is no one's focus is great. If your focus is great, teach us your ways. It's hard, right? When you're praying, your mind is inevitably going to wander. How conscious are you when it wanders, that it's wandering, and how quickly do you bring it back? That's the key. When your mind begins to wander, are you quick to bring it back, or are you just kind of letting it go and letting it fly and you're just like, oh, whatever? Safeguard that time. If you put 30 minutes to pray, if you put 15 minutes to pray, if you only put 5 minutes to pray, make sure that whatever time you set aside for prayer, as much of it as possible is spent in prayer. Because if I only put 5 minutes for prayer, and I hope I'm putting more, but if I only put 5 minutes for prayer, khair, am I spending 0 minutes in prayer? Or am I spending like 4.5 to 5 minutes actually engaged with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, focusing on what I'm saying, right? To where before I make sujood, I tell myself, this sajda is to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing me to live and giving me the blessing of having amazing parents. Allahu Akbar. Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Allahu Akbar. This next sajda, I'm going to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing me to see this blessed month. And so you make your sajda, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Allahu Akbar. Or when I'm in sajda, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, and I'm thinking about, God, there's 1,000 things to think about. Let's not even get into that. So, you know, be mindful, inshallah. I apologize for going a little over time, and especially for Hanafis, I know Asr came in while this talk started, and so we're kind of a little late for Asr, so inshallah, might want to catch that. I think there was, I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you do, feel free to ask. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Malik.
Barakallah feek, Brother Babar. Barakallah feek, Imam Rashid, and everyone who was able to come and listen, inshallah.
Yes, so you touched upon some really great points here of focus and the level of effort and the levels of our fasting. So one question that I have is, we're also used to doing multitasking, right? Sometimes even during the salah, I'm guilty of that. I'm doing some calculations in my head, I'm planning my day, because other times I'm busy. And this is the time when I'm not busy. So I start doing all that stuff and I realize, oh, I need to stop. So these reminders are great because, you know, that's the other thing is that I think during Taraweeh, if, you know, I know the surah and the meaning of what's about to be recited, I pay a lot more attention. Then I'm otherwise my mind starts wandering. If I'm, for example, not even aware of which surah are we reciting, which juz is it? Because, you know, in the starting it's easy. We know it's Surah Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, and after that it becomes harder. So it's always good for the Imam, or, you know, to kind of remind people that today we're going to recite this.
Can I, that's a beautiful point. I remember our teacher talking about this once, and it was kind of unrelated because it's a random mas'ala that doesn't have much to do with what you're saying, but it's very close. And so the scholars have said, and this is in remedy to a different problem altogether, but nonetheless, it applies here to where, the reality is a lot of us don't understand, right? Even if you speak Arabic, sometimes like the Quran will be recited and you just don't understand the majority of the words being said, especially because a lot of them are context-based, right? They're talking about a specific time and a specific period. So if you're praying and someone is reciting Quran and you don't know what's being said and you don't understand what's being said, even if it's for a little small part, one way to kind of zone in and focus and be able to control your focus is, they say, and they recommend this, reflect and think about and just internalize the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Safe thing to do, something we can all do while you're sitting there. And this is something I often do, and it's a tip that I've tried to work on a little bit, is where like if I'm kind of losing focus a little bit praying behind someone, one thing I'll try and do is I'll think about, subhanAllah, imagine how many millions of people in this very moment have their foreheads on the ground thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How magnificent is our maker, subhanAllah. So, just a little bit of a tip on that.
That's great. That's great. So, of course, open to questions by anyone. And of course, also, if you have any topics or any things that you want to suggest for the upcoming halaqas, the next Friday and the Friday after that, inshallah, please mention it here. We have WhatsApp group on Flower Mound where we can also share this. So, inshallah, I'll share the recording with others who may not be, may not join today because of something else. But this was great. Thank you again and again. Last call, if any questions on chat or otherwise, we'll kind of go and start actually implementing some of the things that Brother Malik shared with us today.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Seems like we're good. So again, thanks, and inshallah we'll see you next week.
Inshallah. Barakallah feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.